Welcome to the morning show, gentlemen. How are we?
Good. How you doing?
Doing great. Hey, thanks for joining us on this Father's Day. To all the fathers and that are out there listening, I hope we have an amazing day. Enjoy your family, and maybe you're getting to go golfing or do something that you enjoy rather than honeydew lists today. Um, some of us will be fortunate, some of us won't be. But guys, I know that you are all busy, and I appreciate you taking the time with me. We're going to get into a couple little topics that I know the ATV enthusiasts will love. But first, I don't know, you guys didn't catch the outdoor race yesterday, but Jet Lawrence is making his way back to the front of the pack. He's still third in points with his brother leading and Saxton in third, but it's shaping up to be quite the battle between the two brothers. No comments, huh?
Go for it, Joe.
It's nice to see Hunter doing well. I was kind of worried watching Supercross. You hate to see one brother, thrive and dominate, and the other guy, wonder. It's like, is he going to be on the team next year? Year after that, is it going to be, Jet and no more Hunter? So no, it's good to see Hunter get up there and dice with his brother and have success. Hopefully, those guys can stick together in their career.
I don't think that Honda would split him up at this point. I mean, Hunter's still doing well enough in the outdoor, and maybe he's a developmental rider where he's doing work for his brother or for the other machines to set it up to make it worth having him there. Because who else are you going to pick? I mean,
Yeah, there
yeah.
you go.
I mean, you just answered your own question by having no other resolve. That's our motorcycle chat for the day. Um, I don't know if you guys have been following Joel Hetrick's domination of ATV motocross. Um, Brandon Hogue led for part of the first moto last weekend and looked like he was going to maybe compete with Joel. As soon as Joel got around him, it was kind of over, and it was just the Joel Hetrick show as usual. That guy is on a different level. I'm not sure what it's going to take to beat him.
I would say he's definitely one of the best ever, if not the best ever. That's right. And that's arguable, I know, but man, that guy, he just doesn't seem to make any mistakes. And when he does, he recovers quickly.
I think that if you go down in history, if he ties the eight or beats the eight, he will go down in history as the greatest of all time. Um,
Yeah.
Plus what he's doing with Team USA. Um, I think that, you know, after he gets a little older, maybe he will diversify and go do a couple other things and a couple other, just to fill some slots for some of those great races, just to go race them. But then again, you could see Joel go for so long and then be done. He's proven
Yeah.
everything proved, and why race anymore?
Right. Yeah.
Uh, you know, you Walker Fowler, was right on Bryson Neal at the last race. I'm assuming from everything that I talked to everybody about, he got passed right at the end. You know,
Yeah. It's an interesting story. Walker has what it takes to get back on top, I think. When Joe and I were in Georgia to see the Yamaha manufacturing facility out there, Walker was there with us along with a bunch of other racers. I got to talk to him briefly, and this was before the round in Georgia. And Walker told me, he said he still had kind of a monkey on his back from that crash he was in. It was still messing with his head. And I remember at the Georgia round, he did get a pass on Bryson Neal briefly. And then I think he got passed back when he drifted out too wide into some soft, loamy dirt. And Bryson won it. But you could see it at the end of that round that determination was back. You could see it in his face. He wasn't all smiles and just happy to be there. He wanted to win that race. And I think we've seen that in every round since. Walker, he's a threat to Bryson Neal. Maybe not for the points race this year, but 2025 is going to be pretty exciting in GNCC, I think.
The only difference is you're really struggling with his age, and he
Yeah,
did have a get off 2 rounds ago, and then he can bounce back with a stellar ride and a second place and almost a victory. So you have a guy that wants it. He's still got great skills. He's got better skills than most of the guys he races with.
yeah,
But
yeah.
Jason Neal is a beast. That
He
guy's
is.
a monster,
Yeah.
man. I
Wasn't it?
just
I'm really looking forward to snowshoe. That'll be exciting, especially if it's wet again this year like last year. Hopefully Adam McGill can keep his machine together for it too, because he's always a threat in the muddy stuff. So
right.
I'm
Go
looking
ahead, Jeff.
forward to
You
that.
had something?
No, I was going to say, wasn't it last round that Cole Richardson showed right back up and took fourth after not racing all year?
Yes. And he was in third until the end. But they also did cut him, a lap short. They ended the race early too. And Cole was thankful for that because he's not in racing shape. But yeah, he came out. Um, he's
Yeah,
missed. He's missed because I think that he would be a top three threat. No offense to Josh Merritt, but Josh is having a stellar year as well. Finally
yeah,
coming into the level that he should be.
absolutely.
Yeah, there's some good stuff going on. Um, you know, let's just get this over with, and we can move on with the rest of our day. Um, Everybody knows that we did a little bit of investigative work on the Works series with what happened with Bo Barron and the debacle with that series. The ironic thing is after speaking with Joe, who had helped me through that, getting through that um, investigative process to make it as clear as I could. I spoke with you, Jeff, and you gave me an insight to the fact that Works has done no ATV report on their site like they normally do. So
Right.
go ahead.
Motorcycle and UTV race report is up, but there is no ATV race report as of yet.
Yeah, and it's been what, 3 weeks?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So maybe they know that there's a problem and or they're shying away from it because they know that there is a definite problem with the way that race was handled.
yeah. And I'll say I wasn't there. I haven't been to around since not Buckeye, the one in Blythe. Um, I talked to Bo about a week ago about it, and he's still irritated, upset about it. In my opinion, and I was not there. I think they, worst case, they should have penalized him some time, but not just completely black flagged him and taken all of his points away for that round. Uh, I do know that the change in the course for the pros was announced at the beginning of the race. Everybody was there, including Bo. They knew about it, but apparently there was some kind of a mismark on the course that was easy to miss. Um, Talking to Bo about it, he's upset. I asked him if he wanted to state his peeps, something for dirt wheels for us to put up. And he's very cautious and is taking the high road on that because Works is the only major national series on the West Coast. He doesn't want to deter people from going to race Works. He's still working with the kids, at those rounds, and doesn't want to do anything that would hurt their future with racing. And so we're not going to run anything on it as far as opinion goes.
Think about all the major league sports that happen every single weekend, and just any given NFL game, you'll see referees getting booed because the crowd doesn't like a call that they make, and sometimes they make mistakes. Refs and decision makers are people, and I bet you whoever made the call at Works to black flag him, if they could go back and do it over, they'd probably do it different.
Well, it was the owner of this series that made the call, and
Yeah,
also and
but you
also
I bet if he had to do it again, he might do it a little differently. You know, we're all human. We all make mistakes. That was a very public mistake. The man might actually feel some embarrassment in regard to it, and hopefully learns from it. I make mistakes all the time.
I'm gonna let you guys give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'll just stay silent on that. My opinion.
I think the biggest takeaway is how Bo is handling it and not just thinking about himself, and that just shows tremendous character. And he's always been a fantastic ambassador for the sport of ATV racing. I don't think I could think any higher of him up until that point, and here I see something in him that's even more incredible. Some things people probably don't even know about Bo is he does most of the wrenching on his machine. If you see him between motos, he's washing his own bike. He doesn't have a whole team of people there doing it for him. And I think a lot of it has to do with trust issues. He just wants it. He wants to know what's right. And if something breaks, it's on him. He doesn't have anybody to scream at. But yeah, just incredible character, great human being, and amazing ambassador for the sport of ATV racing.
Exactly. You've nailed it. When you take the high road, Bo Barron is the pinnacle of what a champion is supposed to be. He's the bar that everybody should reach for. So
absolutely.
We'll leave it at that. I just wanted to bring that out and just touch a base on it. You know what? I didn't do my housekeeping in the beginning. If you guys would grant me a moment to do that, we could move on after that. We need to thank Suspension for always being here and supporting us in the ATV industry and ATV-TALK. They do a great job with making sure that we have everything that we need to bring you these shows and to do what we do for the ATV industry. GBC tires. If you're looking for a great tire for your ATV, your UTV, even your truck, get a hold of GBC. They have something that is industry leading, so you should check them out. The Blunt family has been helping ATV-TALK with getting to some events, and we want to thank them very much for all their support. They don't have a company to benefit by their support. They're just enthusiasts and want to make sure that we're out there showing up and showing our support for the industry as well. Antelope Slot Canyon Tours. Hey, if you're in Arizona and you want to go see the canyons up in the northern portion of Arizona, go up there to Antelope Slot Canyon Tours. I can't even talk today. Sorry about that, guys. But it's a great summer view. It does get warm, so book your tour and you will love the canyons. Every time you go there, it's going to be different. The wind changes it. The rainy season changes the canyons, the levels, everything. So it's always different. So go up there and check out Antelope Slot Canyon Tours. Thank you guys for letting me do that. Last week, Joe and I had a great conversation about entering racing and beginning racing. Jeff, we know that you are one of those guys that is an enthusiast in racing, enthusiast in ATV riding. And we wanted to continue a little bit of that conversation if you would be inclined to join us with some of the things that it takes to get started in racing and where you need to be with the machines and the environments. Joe and I talked a lot about the entry-level machines and some of the class changes that they should make for those entry-level riders, whether it be works, cross-country, motocross, whatever it is. The machine you have, there should be a class for you to be able to ride it, whether it be a 400EX or an LTZ 400 or even a 300EX. Bring these machines out and let's find a class for these younger people to start racing, or even older people that just want to go out there and give it a try. What was it like when you started racing?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask about how, as far as a background and getting started racing. My first race was the Baja 1000 in 1995. And that year they ran from Tijuana to all the way to La Paz. We only made it to San Ignacio, about 700 miles. I was slated to go down and help this team with pits. One of their riders got sick. They turned to me and said, Jeff, you're racing. I was like, what? I've never even been to Mexico before. And they said, well, too bad you're racing. I had no say in it. It was while I was out there, it was probably the most insane experience of my life up until that point. And when I got done, I mean, so many times I was like, what am I doing out here? This is crazy. I'm going to get killed. And at the end of the race, I was like, I couldn't wait to get home and sign up for anything and everything ATV racing. And that's where my career started. Getting back to your question, oh yeah, there, especially right now, there should be more classes, at least that for stock machines, say very limited. So you don't have to invest a whole lot of money into your ATV. You know, you can just get out there and participate, see how you like it. Some guys are very fast on stock machines too. With the economic climate we're in right now, people barely have enough money to go to the races, much less race and repair a machine. So yeah, there's definitely got to be value-oriented classes especially for entry level and beginner racers.
Exactly. That's one of the things that Joe and I were talking about. You know, bring out that stock 400EX, you know, that has nurse bars and a kill switch on it, and go ride in the class that you can. You can run stock suspension in most of the series. I know that motocross is a different form, but there are entry level classes in motocross. You don't have to be doing the big triple
Yeah.
to have a great time.
Yeah. You know, and I listened to your podcast too. Another point that you guys brought up was you don't have to have, you know, Joel Hetrick's machine to get out there and have fun. You're not going to ride at his level, you know, at least not starting out. A lot of guys, and we see this, especially Joe and I have talked about this quite a bit. A lot of guys, take for instance the Pro 4x4 class with GNCC. A lot of those pro racers, or several of them, prefer the 850 to the 1000 Renegades that they're running, because I think it's an endurance deal. It takes a lot more strength and endurance to manhandle that 1000cc 90 horse machine, whereas the 850 is a little bit more manageable. Same thing goes with sport quads. Same thing goes with dirt bikes. You know, that if you are riding a machine that you can almost master the full capability of that machine, you're probably going to be the fastest on that machine, you know, versus another machine that demands you to ride faster, to hit bumps and ruts and jumps harder for the suspension to work correctly. That's going to wear a novice rider out much more quick. So yeah, there's that was the best advice I thought you guys had, is don't go out there and try to build the best bike. You know, but you want to be faster, definitely start with your suspension, and then you can move on to intake, air, you know, mods with there's several places you can take it. Obviously one of the best is Duncan Racing. So yeah, don't feel like you have to go all in on this. To take it in baby steps, and you'll have a lot more fun and have money left over to enter the next round.
What do you, I want both of you guys to answer this question. What do you think that we need to do with the promoters to make them understand? Because I don't see any of the series, you know, the major ones that we talk about making allowances for this to happen. You know, Jeremy Osborne tries really hard at Briarcliff, but I don't see any of the other guys making spots for these entry levels, trying to bring the entries up or to introduce the sport to other people. They just throw them into a B class, you know, and everybody there's got a built bike, and these poor guys can't even ride. What can we do to,
Yeah.
you know, to get the promoters to understand that they need to modify?
I'm assuming that money talks, you know, and if they see the potential for that class to grow and for people to come in and know that they're participating on a level playing field, I don't see why you wouldn't see any growth there, you know, and actually promote ATV racing as a safe way to recreate on ATVs too. Everybody's going the same direction. You know, it's not like you're dealing with oncoming traffic out on, you know, trails and stuff like that. It is a safe way to recreate, provided you have all the proper gear, and they're going to double check that when you go through your tech inspection. But I don't see why it would be difficult just to add another line into a, you know, certain, you know, like the works, you know, they have different classes that start on at the same time. They're, you know, spaced 30 seconds apart. You know, there's got to be a place to fit a class in that, you know, for stock machines. And I think you would see that class grow quickly and probably take over some of those other classes. So.
Joe, what do you think? What can we do with the promoters to shake them up a little bit?
I haven't really given that a lot of thought. You know, I think it kind of depends on, you know, I don't know how to change the attitude of the promoter, but looking at it from the enthusiast perspective and like, where do I go to compete? I don't have, you know, a super tricked out four-wheeler, and let's say I'm a beginner and I can't even handle a super tricked out four-wheeler. You know, where to start? You know, we just to keep beating that drum, like we took a stock Raptor to a GNCC and led for a bit. You know, we ran in second in the B class for most of the race. We didn't have a pipe. We didn't have aftermarket shocks. The one thing we could have done different is just sprocket and rotor guard as opposed to a swing arm skid plate, and we might have been on the podium. You know, that was a simple judgment and error on our part. And we knew going in it was a mistake, but we're like, we're not here to win. We're here to learn. So let's just see how we do. So, you know, I think, you know, if you're looking at, I've got a 300EX. Let's say you're a grown guy and you've got a 300EX and that's all you've got. And it's pretty stock, but it's in good condition. You know, where can you compete? Well, go to your local cross country series. You know, they're, especially in the Eastern United States, those series are thriving. You'll find a lot of competition and you'll find guys that you can race with and beat. You know, pick the right class that's appropriate for where you are. I look at it like motocross and maybe TT to a point. It's just, you know, you're talking about a type of racing where, like, if I was going to go race motocross this year, I'd at least want a stock YFZ 450R or a stock 450 of some sort and put them out of the box in that 50-inch range. You know, I don't know that the race promoters in the GNC can create a competitive class for a 300EX or, you know, necessarily a 400EX for adults, because it's not just a matter of how shock. It's how wide is your machine for stability reasons. You know, if you want to try motocross and you don't have a high dollar setup, check out your local fair series. You know, a lot of just local guys show up from the farm with their farm four-wheeler and race the fair series. The competition isn't as deep. Run whatever you got. Just
Yeah, some allow you to enter a lawn tractor.
oh my gosh.
You haven't seen that? I want to get in on that.
Yeah, bring out the John Deere and head to the fair. So,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know that there's an easy way to get the promoters to do it. I mean, maybe if they just did a generic, you know, 16 and up class, you know, for 400 and under. But then how do you police that class to make sure people aren't building rocket ship 400s? So
You're gonna, you know, this is where it comes back down to the difficulties when we deal with promoters. Most of them are only there for the dollars. They're not there for the growth of the sport. No offense, but offense is given because you need a tech guy that knows what he's doing, that can hear the differences between a built machine and a stock machine. You can see how well they accelerate out of the turns, especially in these lower classes. You know, if you have stock suspension and a kill switch and a set of Nerf bars, maybe they have a pipe on them. And if you got some guy out there on a Z400 and he's driving away from the rest of the field, there might be skill there, but odds are he's got some type of motor mods done to the thing, and he's cheating because he wants
the ATV,
that healthy. and the bragging rights.
The ATV Nationals figured it out a long time ago with the 50s. In the 50 limited class, I don't know if these are the rules anymore, but it used to be that like you had to have a stock carburetor, you had to have a stock exhaust. And by limiting those two things, it was like whatever you do to the internals of the motor, it's only going to have so much effect when you're restricted externally.
Right. Right. I kind of agree to that. I was talking to a guy that builds micro sprints cars, where they use the motorcycle engines. And in the age classes, they have a restrictor plate. So the car's identical, same carbs, same ECU, same everything, but they just put a restrictor plate in between the injector body and the motor. So it instantly limits the car. And then if this individual goes to the next level, they can just slide the restrictor plate out, put the intake back together, and now it's a normal car, like in the non-age group classes, which I thought was pretty ingenious for a way to do it. That you just limited the power of the car for the youth and the skill level of those drivers. Unfortunately, with ATVs, it's probably not that easy. And you have to have somebody that knows what they're doing to police it. And I don't think that there's at the promoter level, I don't think there's a lot of guys that understand how to know what's performance and what isn't. The stock carb and the stock exhaust in those classes probably is the best way to do it.
And certain things are going to be hard to limit. Like if you've got an older Z400 or you've got a 400EX, those are two bikes that could be set up to do any kind of discipline. But if you want to do a suspension restriction, it's hard to implement it on those bikes, or even for a non-R Raptor that has non-adjustable suspension. I mean, if the shocks on the ATV aren't rebuildable and it's a 20-year-old bike, you're literally, if you're trying to put a limit on suspension, you're telling that guy race with 20-year-old blown out shocks. Well, that's a safety issue. That's tough.
Yeah, that's going to hurt his kidneys, that I totally get that. And there you have to have some leeway and some understanding of the machines that you're dealing with. Like if you have a 300EX and you roll it out there and going to race the stock class, they haven't made that bike for 15 years already.
Yeah, that's a major problem.
Yeah, so you're going to have to work.
So go buy a YFZ. Support the brand that still supports us.
Well, yeah, but okay, we're only talking about adults then when we talk about the 450s or the 700s.
Right. Yeah, that's all I was talking
about. But if you're talking about the kids, man, it's hard, especially in that in between the Raptor 250 size. The KO 200 might be a machine that you could come out and race in a class like that. It might be a little underpowered, but at least you're out there having a good time. If the 300 comes, we haven't heard anything in a while, so maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know. The level of information that I'm getting is super quiet. There is nothing being talked about from any of the sources I've had. Pardon, Joe?
So Rome wasn't built in a day.
I understand.
Yeah, they're dealing with some EPA stuff that they're going to get through, and I'm sure we'll hear something soon. I am very optimistic that we will be seeing that machine in the next year or two.
That's great. But I'm talking about even from any of the other sources that I have, there's nothing. I mean, there's no talk about anything. And that is uncharacteristic. Usually there's some rumblings of some type of ATV or something going on in the industry. And right now there's nothing.
The one thing that I would look at as an indicator that something might be coming in the near future is the sport UTV market right now seems to be plummeting, especially those higher end models. The dealers are backed up with them. People can't afford them. people, most economists will tell you right now that people at this point have burned through their savings. They're 90% of the way through their credit cards already. They don't have the money for a 30, 40, $50,000 toy. ATV sales on the 4x4 side, at least, are actually starting to come up. They have been coming up for a little bit. So, if people can't afford sport machines, the next affordable way to go would be to go to a sport ATV, I would think. I don't know. I think this year, the remainder of this year and next year, is going to be very telling in how the industry goes. And we brought up Works. Look at the Works UTV entries. They're I know this was a topic of the discussion at the last round. I think it was Dave Ham, or no, it was Rob Baumsteiger was telling me he was sitting in with a discussion with him, and a couple of years ago they had hundreds of entries. Now their entry UTV entries total are in the 20 range. They're 25 UTVs total. People can't afford to race those things anymore either. So markets adjust. Markets adjust. It'll be interesting to see how the manufacturers react to this.
Well, and how long, how many people are out there that have enough of a budget to race those things, on a regular basis at a decent level, and have it be financially sustainable. We dealing with the issues right now with, Polaris's representative company trying to stick editors with bills for machines. You tip over a razor, holy crap. I haven't priced a full set of plastic, or at least one side of plastic, but I bet you if you have to reskin a whole side of a razor because they paint the plastic, so it costs 3 times as much as non-painted plastic. They say it's because it stays looking good longer. Yeah, till you tip it over, then it costs 3 times as much to replace. What is it? $1,000, $1,500 to reskin one side of your side by side if you just lay it over gently. And that's beyond the roll cage devastation and all that. I mean, me and Lenny were talking before the show, and it's like, if you have a 20, he said that he's seen a number of guys going from side by side and they're fixing up their quads. Well, if you have a $21,000 race quad, it's a pretty nice quad. I mean, $21,000 will buy you a new YFZ 450R, full suspension, including A-arms, axle, wheels, tires, Nerf bars, kill switch. You might not get a Joel Hetrick motor that you would go slower with anyway because you won't have Joel Hetrick's talent. I'm just talking in general, 95% of anybody out there. But a $21,000 YFZ is a brand new machine with a lot of aftermarket on it that would be pretty competitive and well set up. $21,000 is a stock Razor XP 1000 with no accessories, nothing.
And that's the low grade shocks, no radio, no frills whatsoever, right?
Low grade in side by sides is a little different because typically through, and maybe Jeff has an opinion on this too, but typically with my guys, I work with some pretty high level drivers, and they typically like the analog cars better than the digital cars. And what I mean is like Fox Live Valve on the Hondas, Polaris dynamic, computer controlled suspension, smart shocks on the Maverick. They all have their own name, but most high level drivers don't want the computer controlled suspension. And the reason being is that you can go through a set of whoops 24 times, just nail the same line every single time, and the car will not perform the exact same way every time it goes through because that you've got a computer that's constantly changing shock setting.
Another thing, some of those cars too, if they have a fault in the ECU, it can do weird things too. Like I've had Can-Ams that when we went full extended, it created an issue in the ECU that made the car go full firm. And, if you're coming into a set of whoops full firm, it's going to be pretty gnarly. It can do unpredictable stuff, whereas the analog shocks, you know what you've got. And if you blow a shock, you're going to blow a shock either way. So
do you think, not to get off topic, because we did switched into the market setup, do you think that it's the fault of the manufacturers not doing enough testing is the reason why the AI shocks or the smart shocks and the ECUs are not performing exactly the way they're supposed to?
I think go ahead, Jeff.
ahead.
You
No,
got it.
you go ahead.
Okay, well, real quick. So I think part of it is, I think the computer controlled shocks work pretty well. We just tested a Maverick X3, 6-9 months ago. My driver had it for a year, and it's got smart shocks, and he loves it. And Eric's a good driver. Now, he's not necessarily, he hasn't raced, so I can't say he's a pro level driver. He's very good. He's very smooth. I think the average guy and his wife, when they go out there, she doesn't want that car to have any kind of body roll because it makes her feel scared when you're driving it into a corner and all of a sudden the car's rolling a little bit. So amateurs that think that they're fast, they just want the car to stay perfectly flat so they can huck it into a corner and slide it with confidence. A high-level driver wants some body roll so that they can, slam on the brakes, load the front end, weight transfer it, get that outside front tire biting. Now they typically run them in all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive. So now you've got that outside front tire squatted, hooked, pulling you through the corner. That's typically another thing that's very important to the race crowd, where the recreational crowd's just like, I want the car to stay flat at all times. I don't want it to feel spooky. So probably for 3/4 of the market, those computer controlled shocks work really well. It's only your really high level racer type, want a super consistent, precise feeling that can actually tell the difference in what the shocks are doing, other than just, is it body roll, is it flat? High level guys typically like it. For noobs, the computer controlled suspension is probably maybe just as good or a little better to suit their needs.
Yeah, I agree. And when I was talking about analog shocks being preferred, I was talking about just racers only. I think the electronic shocks like Fox Live Valve do work well for recreational use. I have a Honda Talon with the Live Valve edition, and the big problem with the sport UTVs is not whether you got electronic shocks or not. It's the springs. I don't know of any manufacturer that actually springs these things for the actual weight that they're going to be carrying, which would be, 2 average size passengers and your bed full of gear, tools, or whatever. The Talon, for one, I noticed right away in my Live Valve that it felt rough in even just little rocky trails and chop washboard. It felt really rough, and it was because when we loaded it up with, my wife and I and our gear in the back, the shock squished enough to they were already in the action. They were already getting stiff, and a lot of people's reaction to that is, okay, let's just loosen up the preloads a little bit, and they're going the wrong way. You want to actually raise the car up so you're getting the beginning of that shock travel, that nice sweet spot for the slower speed stuff. So that's where you want to, mess, whether you got analog shocks or electronic shocks. It's the spring rate that you need to go after first. And Live Valve, I took mine to shock therapy, and Live Valve, my Live Valve system works so much better with the shock set at the correct rate.
So how do they do that? Do they manipulate the computer for the suspension, or are they changing the valving?
They can change the valving. I didn't do that. I just went, they cleaned up the reservoirs for me, and they resprung it. It's about $1,000 job if you took it there and had them do all the work. And it just makes a tremendous amount of difference. They can go in and revalve even the electronic systems too, to work better and have a wider range of action. So
they can reprogram them and everything like that.
I'm sure they can. I think they can reflash and all that stuff. And that's a shock therapy, which Fox owns shock therapy now too. So I don't know, I'd have to look into that a little bit more. I have never
I'm sure.
been down there and seen them.
I'm sure that tech is coming to the ATV industry at
Yeah.
some point, because everybody's going it. I remember, back years ago, before the Cadillac came out with its electronic suspension, I was in Italy and in an Audi, and it already had electronic suspension in it, where it was, it was an amazing. It was a 6-speed diesel Audi, and it was incredible, fast, handled, smooth, amazing car. And that's back in 2001. And that technology didn't get over here for a couple years later. And they just keep improving it in the automobiles. I'm sure that we'll see a change in motorcycle ATV suspension at some point, where they'll start dialing it in, most likely in the street bikes. They may already do that in some of your MotoGP stuff.
Yeah.
This was originally a discussion about like economics and what's going on in the industry. And Jeff and I were discussing this the other day, is that, yeah, live valve, smart shocks, whatever, well, what's that add to the price of the car? A couple $1,000s? It kind of seems like it started back with fuel injection, where it's like, okay, this ATV is not carbureted, it's fuel injection. Okay, well, that costs 5,000, or not 5,000, but it's $500 more because it's fuel injected. And then here came, here came power steering. I think fuel injection came before power steering a little bit. It was pretty close, but it's like, what's power steering cost you? Now that we have it, I don't want to ride a 4x4 without it. Actually, I like to test 4x4s without it, because it gives me a really good base feeling on what's the quad doing without that Band-Aid. And then you add power steering to a great handling ATV, it's even better. But adding that power steering raised the price $800 to $1,000. Smart shocks, what's that cost? I haven't tried to dig in enough to find out, but I bet you add smart shocks, computer controlled shocks to a car, it's a $1,500 to $2,000 upgrade. Less of this would be good. Polaris thought years ago, they're like, oh, we think we've reached market saturation, so we're going to put a computer screen on the dashboard, and we think we're going to get video game nerds to get off the couch and come buy $30,000 side-by-sides. No, you won't. It'll be good for the people who are already in it, that have the budget, that want it. But you're not going to get nerds off the couch to come play in the dirt because you stuck a video game on the screen of a freaking side-by-side. But everything they're doing is just adding cost, just adding expense. What we really need in this industry is a battle to see who can build the best performing, stripped down, basic, like a Honda Pilot with 4-wheel drive, where it's like, oh, I tipped it over, I'm going to crawl out, flip it back over, I'm going to go. What did I break? Nothing. Because the only thing that touches the ground when you flip a Honda Pilot over is the outside edge of the wheels and the top of the cage. There's no body work to destroy. That's what we need. We need a battle of cheap, not a battle of who can put more shit on it to raise the price more.
I love Joe. Always just throwing it out there. We got off topic though, guys, and I agree with everything you just said. But when we were talking about the market, we were talking about, yes, the UTVs are excelling in price at a rate that the consumer base can't keep up with. But what most people are missing is I'm always hearing the ATV industry is dying. The ATV industry is dying. It's not dying. It's growing. The recreational side of ATVs is growing, because what they're doing, because they only have the choice to buy on a 450. Oh, you can't buy that 450 in California. You can buy a 700, but that hurts the industry a bit. So the California people are refurbishing and repairing everything they use in the ATV world. And the problem with that is so many people have ditched the old school ATV stuff, that they don't want to work on it. And we see more and more people getting rid of their UTVs or parking the UTVs and bringing their ATVs back out with their family. Whether it's a 250R, a Banshee, or even your Z400s, your 400EXs. I'm hoping that we see the same transition with the 400EX that we did with the T250R, with somebody in the States in the ATV industry building transmission componentry and maybe cases. Well, the cases were not always an issue, but the cylinders and heads, to bring these machines back to life so that they just don't fade away and disappear. That's what I'm seeing. I don't know from your vantage point, Jeff or Joe, what you're feeling. I can just tell you what I feel every day where I'm at.
It's a roller coaster. I mean, we see, some little indicator that points that sport quads might come back, and then, you lose hope. But I mean, it's just constant up and down of that. But I do feel like I'm almost glad that we're headed into this economic situation that we're in right now, because it could reset things back to that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like the power sports industry needs a reality check.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
it's like when Honda sits here and tells us that at the event, like, nobody cares about ATVs anymore. It's just side-by-sides. It's like, yeah, because that's all you build. That's all you market. That's all you create hype about. As much as we love Yamaha, and every year that the YFZ and the Raptor come back, it's like, all right, we're getting them for another year. Thank goodness. But it's hard to sit here and be like, yes, Yamaha just released the new Raptor and YFZ, because nothing changed. It's the same. It's hard to get adrenalized about the same thing. And I don't know why Honda would think that everybody just be flipping out because the blue bikes are back and everybody's going to be like, 25s are here. I got to buy a new one. Why? It's the same as my 20. If it's not worn out, I don't need to replace it.
But the thing that you're missing, Joe, is the fact we should be excited. We should be over thrilled with it because they are still doing it, even though it is the same. I understand what your point is, but at least they're still doing it, and they have no competition. They have no reason to change it at this moment. Till Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki, KO.
Tell that to Can-Am, because the Renegade 800, later the Renegade 1000, that came out in, I want to say, 2008 or 2012. I should know this. I'm doing a video on it right now. It came out as an 800. A few years later.
That was 08. That was 08.
800 in 08. By 12, it got a Gen 2 chassis. It went to 1,000 cc's. It didn't have to. It was still the best. It beat the Scrambler. There was a Scrambler 1000 for like 2, 3, 4 years that Polaris had that was in the same category, that went away. After the Scrambler went away, now it's the Scrambler S. That's a totally different machine. I mean, it's got 1,000 cc motor, but it's wider, more travel, not the same class. You'll never race G and CC with it unless you narrow it up significantly, and maybe even shorten the wheelbase somehow. But back in 19, Can-Am didn't have a competitor, I don't think, by that point. What did they do with the Renegade? They made it 2 inches wider. They recalibrated the suspension. I think that year they added intelligent throttle control. I think that was back in 19. I'd have to go through it again. But then, by 2023, what did they do? They redesigned the front look of it. They changed the look. They made it easier to clean the radiator. They put LED headlights on it. Can-Am is another company that, and I love Yamaha, and I love the fact that they still make them. And don't take my, I sit here and I say I'm relieved when they come back every year, because I don't want them to go away. I fully want them back. But as a guy who runs a publication, I want an excuse to be able to make a video that says there's some changes, because I know that if I can say there's changes to their machine, it's going to result in much higher video views for my publication. It's going to result in more people buying that issue of Dirt Wheels magazine. And the reason that more people are going to be buying and more people are going to be watching our content is because they're excited about it too. The general consumer would be more excited with new stuff from Yamaha. The thing with Can-Am, though, and my point with him is Can-Am understands, even if they don't have a direct competitor, they're competing against every single machine they've already sold in that class. The more of them that are out there, the less reason there is for somebody to go to that dealer and buy that new machine unless they update. Can-Am gets it.
Okay, if Can-Am gets it, why don't they have a Sport 450? Because they couldn't build a quality Sport 450 before. It was this total pile of shit. And what, they can't compete in the 450 market? They don't want to come and face Yamaha? They don't got no balls? What's the deal?
That's a different discussion. That's sidestepping.
Okay, well, we were talking about sport quads and you brought up 4x4s, and it's not the same thing. Let's talk knuckles to knuckles, and they can't compete. They can't build a quality quad in that market. And if they could, then they should come on our show and do it. They built what?
Build jets. They can absolutely build a sport quad if they chose to do it. But if we want to say, why don't they build a sport quad? I can't answer that. I just say it's same as everybody else. It's greed. They'd rather you buy a $30,000 machine than a $13,000 machine. But as far as the discussion on why should Yamaha update them because they have no competition, my point is for the same reason that Can-Am out updates the Renegade, because updates give you a reason to go back, trade in, get a new vehicle.
Yeah,
Why does Corvette?
I agree with you and disagree with you at the same time. In the manufacturing portion of it is the reason I disagree, because they're justifying to keep building it because they sell everything they build. If they change it, they're increasing their cost. Now they have to introduce the new machine out there and hope that they sell everything. And if it's too much different than what the 20 years of machines they have, they're not going to sell as much at first. It's going to be a slower process. And corporate is not looking for that. Corporate is looking for those dollars to sell that specific amount of units and make the most amount of profit possible. At least that's how I see it. I could be wrong, but
if a brand new machine would result in slower sales, then why was the 2006 Raptor 700 the #1 selling year for that quad?
So developmental reasons in the 450s would cause it to be a little slower if it's that much different than the 450 of today, is what I'm saying. Because the performance industry today is going to take longer to build performance parts for it than it would have in 2006. That's all I'm saying. I know our development on our side to build developmental products would take a lot longer because we don't have the same resources that we had. We don't have the same manpower, and the cost of everything is so much more. And there's other companies out there that are in the same boat. They're barely able to keep up with the work that they have. And if the machine changed, yeah, they would have to stop making money to develop parts for a while for this machine. In the end, they would make money, but if you can't keep up, what do you do? And there's no new blood coming into the industries to help build the machines that we're building now and to do the work. It's a very difficult scenario. It's a very difficult scenario. I'm not saying that building a new machine wouldn't be great for the industry in time, but immediately it would not be.
So are we saying we want Honda and Can-Am to come out with new sport quads and we'd like Yamaha to update? Or are we saying, please don't do that because we can't keep up already?
Yes, we would, because that would be a whole If you got three manufacturers with new machines, that's a whole different story. If Yamaha just changes theirs, that's not what we're talking about. One manufacturer right now that we have in Yamaha changing their 450 that is going down in the history books as one of the best ever built, solely because of the time frame that it's just taking over the industry, versus having a new Yamaha, a new Honda, and a new Can-Am. Okay, that's totally different. You're going to have a total division in companies. There's going to be a company that's going to focus on the one, another company is going to focus on the other, and another company is going to focus on that. And you'll have a couple that are going to focus on all three. They'll be slower developing, but they're still going to do it. The competition would be great for the industry if you had three. One is not going to have the same results as three. If you understand where I'm going with that.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, I've told Honda point blank, to their face, like, we need three, we don't need one, and we don't need five. And I tell every one of these manufacturers, if you don't want to be one of the three initially, don't come back. Once if we can get back to three, stay out. Don't overpopulate the pond. We don't want the pond to starve to death again and become a dead pond. So
exactly. Three 450s or three, competitive sport quads would be spectacular. Jeff, you're just sitting there laughing. Are you like Joe and I going back and forth with you?
I'm reflecting on some of the conversations that Joe and I have had on this subject and stuff that we probably shouldn't say in public as to who those manufacturers should be. But I did want to throw one. Go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to throw one thing. Here, if I was Yamaha, I wouldn't change it. From a business standpoint. What is a YFC now? It's still just under $11,000. All of the other Japanese. What's that?
11,599. By the time you get it out the door, it's like around 12.
Are you sure about that? Am I gonna have to look this up now to correct you?
599. Look it up.
I should know this because I just wrote a review of the 2024.
Wrong.
Let me ATV Sport ATV. The YFZ 450R, not the SC, is 10,599 MSRP.
Oh, no,
you got
that. Did I say 11.5? I apologize. I screwed up. My bad.
Yeah. It's under $11,000. I've talked to some of the other Japanese manufacturers about bringing a sport quad back, and they said, Jeff, we could do it, but it's going to start at 13 grand. So, and Yamaha knows this. So they're thinking, okay, well, no matter what comes to the market, it's going to be $2,500 more or $2,400 more than what we're already charging for the YFZ, and they're going to have to match our quality, our width, our performance.
The only reason that their bike is that price is because the manufacturing hasn't changed.
Right. Exactly. That was the point I was getting to. You make a change, you're dealing with government organizations to approve that change, and it costs a lot of money to make a major change. There is one change
why don't we get the government out of it? Why don't we get the government out of it? And that would solve all of our problems because they don't need to be involved in it.
Well, because we're not going to have an armed revolution over sport quads.
Why you got to push that bubble, Joe? Why you got to
go grab my guns?
Okay, do me a favor, since you got the computer there and I don't. Look up the price of the new MSRP of the 2009 YFZ 450R and the 2009 YZ 450F, and see what the price is of those two machines. Because I bet you they're within $500 of each other. Because I hear now, like, if we come back with a sport quad, it's going to be 13, when a dirt bike's not 13 unless you get to that high-end race package. Because we got to remember, like, in recent history, the manufacturers are adding like these premium packages where they come with special triple clamps and special this, special that, maybe a bigger shock shaft. You can get like an A-kit bike versus a standard off the showroom bike, which always was the baseline for what a motocross bike was. This like premium package thing is a newer phenomenon. But the cost of a sport quad, to my recollection, and I just got corrected on the YFZ price. Sorry, Yamaha. I don't know why I had 11,599 in my head. I know what a dirt bike costs. And the point to this is a YZ450F is still, I bet that bike is like 10,599 for the dirt bike. The quad and the dirt bike are the same price now, basically. And I think they were basically the same price back in 09, if I remember.
No, I looked it up. In 09, the YZ was $73.99. The YFZ was $83.99. They're $1,000 apart.
So the quad was $1,000 more than the bike.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Okay, it does. It does, because there's more parts.
Yeah.
I don't know much about checking prices like that because I don't do that on new machines. I do know
it's called Google.
Well, I don't look at I could look it up, but I don't.
Yeah.
I just know that we're probably not going to get anybody new in the industry. I think your new 450 is going to come from a Chinese company myself, whether it be KO or why am I dropping the name of that other company we talk about, Joe? The other Chinese.
Denago?
Huh?
Denago.
No, I haven't heard of them before.
It might be KO. I'm always going through a lot of the patent sites, looking at some of the other manufacturers like Riju. I think that's how you say it. They're a Spanish dirt bike company that bought the other part of gas that KTM didn't take. I'm always kind of watching to see if they're up to anything. And there's another couple of dirt bike companies, smaller companies. Beta is another one. I have a Beta and I love it. I would love to see them try to hop into the sport ATV business, but yeah, I haven't seen anything.
What about what's that other Chinese company that we were talking about, Joe? They build street bikes and UTVs.
CF Moto.
Yes.
Oh yeah, CF Moto, yeah.
CF Moto. I can see them diving in because they got their fingers in everything, and some of their stuff looks really nice. I've never ridden any of it or driven any of it, so I don't know, but it looks good.
I have. I got to ride. There was the prototype of their 800 and 1000 touring 4x4s, and they're high quality. They are, and they have all kinds of fancy features. Huge color display. They come with a winch, massive ground clearance, excellent suspension travel with full adjustment and reservoirs on the 1000cc, and that machine is $9,999. That's a 2-up ATV also. Just feels tight, like a Japanese engine. And for $9,999, if you go to say Kawasaki, the Brute Force 750, the base machine with no EPS is $9,999. CF Moto has 25% market share over in Europe in the ATV industry, and yeah, they got their bullseye set on North America now, and they're going to make an impact for sure.
What were you saying, Joe?
Yeah, and I was just saying, like, yeah, just like what Jeff was saying, like the base model Brute Force 750, that's no winch, no power steering, no flashy wheels, and with everything Jeff's saying about the CF Moto, like I didn't attend that event because it was whatever. I just didn't have I didn't have time. I'll be getting with those guys hopefully this year, but the equivalent to that model that he's talking about, that 2-up premium appointed sub $10,000 CF Moto 1000, the equivalent to that machine in a Can-Am is like 15 grand.
Yeah.
So it's a third less.
They're competing in that, 14 to 15,000 grand market with a machine that is very nice looking, rides fantastic, it feels good. I can't comment on durability or how long it will last because they're brand new, but man, they feel the part. And yeah, $14,000 to $15,000 machine, and they love CF Moto loves being in dealerships where there's multiple brands, because how do you look at that machine and then go over to one of these other that's a base model for the same or even more money and say, I'm going to go with the more expensive machine that doesn't have as nice, as many accessories and stuff on it. It comes out. A lot of people won't do it because it's made in China. CF Moto is actually moving a lot of their manufacturing down to Mexico. And a lot of people, I don't think, realize that a lot of the Japanese and the North American manufacturers, they already do a lot of business with China with their parts and Mexico. So it's not like it's something new. I've been up to the new CF Moto facility up in Minnesota. I talked to them about, the possibility of getting into a sport quad, and I didn't really get any reaction out of them whatsoever. Nothing was telling. I don't think anything is coming or in the plans so far. But they do have a good youth model that Joe and I have talked about. The little 110 is probably one of the best looking youth model sport machines I've seen as far as major manufacturers go. I'm not talking about the guys that build them aftermarket.
Why are you guys not beating them up to talk with them about a 250 or 300 cc, and then even to the 450 machines, the sport guys?
Let us get to a press event with them, and me and Jeff will come marching down to break team champions. And we'll hit them with a finisher and tell them all about it.
Yeah, we've already got a reputation as the two pests in the ATV media about bringing back sport ATVs, and the discussions get heated.
Well, yeah, but the guys that you're discussing with have no power and have no bullets in their gun to have the argument, because they just say, oh, nobody wants them. Well, then why are companies like the company I work for so busy? And there's other companies out there that are just as busy, and maybe companies that we don't even know of that are working on sport ATVs that are even more busy, because the industry is not dying. Give us new machines and we'll frickin' show you.
Excuse you, young man, but I had this conversation with the president of Suzuki Global. I don't know how much higher up the food chain I can go than the president of Suzuki. But and his response was, "Oh well, you never know what might happen." Well,
yeah. And now would be a great time for Suzuki to come out with something too.
You guys need a win. Seriously, you need a win.
Well, you know what? I just heard something about Suzuki. I don't even remember where I heard it, but they are killing it in small, little bitty, mini cars. I don't know what you call them, but they're like that little Fiat that you see every once in a while on the road. They make little cars like that, and they sell them all over Asia, and they're killing it. I mean, just killing it. So their business is not motorcycles and ATVs. They're making little bitty cars, and their industry markup, or their industry mark. Gosh, they're in the top 20 automakers in the world, and they're making these little cars that they sell all over Asia. I don't see them over here, but they're not hurting. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think they just came out. They're marketing it like it's new, or maybe it's just a new ad, but they're sure talking like it's new. I don't follow the street bike market that much, but I saw an advertisement on Facebook the other day for like a GSX 800 or a GS 800. They've been doing stuff in street bikes, but they're not in the US. They're not putting any money into anything other than street bikes. It's like, do they even have an R&D department for RM anymore? I don't know.
I don't think so. But maybe it's because they're sick and tired of the restrictions that it takes to get things in this country. I mean, if I was a manufacturer, I'd seriously be pissed and pushing away.
Well, and they can, but Triumph and Beta are, and soon to be Ducati are going to be right here to snatch it up.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Dakar Rally, they just eliminated ATVs so that they could make room for, Ducati and Aprilia in the motorcycle side for the entries, the amount of entries they're allowed. Crazy, crazy stuff happening. It's unbelievable. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for coming on the morning show. Jeff, I know that you have to make a schedule for us. We really appreciate it. Everybody, you need to go out and subscribe to Dirt Wheels. When we get a professional like Jeff Hinson to come on with us, he is in the publication. It's blurry, dude. It's blurry.
Wow, what's the deal? I think you're censoring us right now.
I am.
Another sport quad, the YFZ, on the current issue that just came out in July.
That's incredible stuff. So if you haven't got your subscription to Dirt Wheels, you need to do that. Remember, Joe Tolle from ATV On Demand, UTV On Demand. Go check out his videos, subscribe where you can. Hey, you got to do that because that's what's going to help us all grow. Remember, subscribe to ATV-TALK, please. We need to grow as well. It helps us in the algorithms so that we can bring you more shows. Jeff, in closing, what do you got for us?
This new issue, I was just going to tell you, it has a 1995 Suzuki Quad Runner restored out of a company in Portugal that I think you'll take particular interest in because they actually put a Duncan graphics kit on this thing. It's really neat. Have you seen the new issue? Have you guys got it yet?
Not got it yet.
Oh, well, you'll really want to see that. Well, one other thing I wanted to mention was we put out the word for a local motocross track here in Arizona. It's called Twisted Lizard Speedway. It's between Quartzsite and Phoenix. Very supportive of quad racing and practice and all that. They just came up with some zoning requests to hold racing events there and stuff, and they came up with some opposition. 8 people in the areas that are snowbirds that didn't want the track there. When Brian Holden, who owns the track, called me up and asked if there was anything we could do to help get people to support the track. So we put out the call, and in less than 24 hours, you guys sent over 180 letters to the Zoning and Planning Commission in La Paz County. They had the hearing 4-1 in favor of the track. There's powers and numbers. We should be doing this for all the different riding areas that are, whether it's a government or some environmentalist group trying to, close our trails. Guys, speak up, be heard to keep those places open because it works.
Right, I agree. Joe, what do you got for us in closing?
I'm going to go pan a KOS 200 side-by-side today. But it's interesting that I want to talk about what Jeff said, because, mate, it would be so funny if we could get, as publications, that we could motivate viewers and readers and enthusiasts enough to, like, on this day at this time, we are going to shut down the Honda switchboard. No one will be able to get in to talk to them about anything, because for 8 hours today, all you're going to do is call repeatedly and demand a new sport quad. That's it. They're not going to get to talk cars, dirt bikes, nothing. Just shut them down. We want a sport quad. We guys build one. I mean, it would be rad if we could turn. Writing a letter is a big commitment, and it really shows that these sport quad people that took the time to do this, they're very determined. I think maybe we should do a pilot for Honda.
There we go.
Everybody, I like it.
You want your sport quad. Let's get those letters and phone calls made. Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki, whoever your favorite is, jump on, CF Moto, whatever. Let's get it taken care of. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate everything. Joe, as always, thank you so much for your insight. Jeff, keep up the good work at Dirt Wheels. I love the paperback. I know that they're my customers and my followers also like it. So please keep doing that and make sure that Dirt Wheels keeps up the good work.
Thank you, and happy Father's Day to you.
Thank you so much. Everybody else, happy Father's Day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you guys all soon.
Adios.
I'm going to go spend some
Yeah.
time with my dad at a car show down the street. So,
Have fun.
all right. We'll talk.